Listen guys, tonight we're diving into the explosive truth about what really went down between Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. This is allegedly a tale of deception, psychological warfare, and hidden secrets that will completely flip everything you believed about their relationship. For years, people speculated about what caused their marriage to implode while gossip swirled and tabloids ran wild, but Harry remained completely silent, protective, and devoted to the woman he abandoned his royal birthright for. But according to insiders close to the prince, Harry has reportedly started revealing what actually happened behind the walls of their Montecito mansion, and what he's allegedly sharing isn't just heartbreaking, it's reportedly soul-crushing. Not celebrity drama or surface-level conflict, but the real story. The pieces he never expected he'd have to expose, the betrayals he never saw coming from someone he trusted with his deepest vulnerabilities. When you discover what Meghan allegedly orchestrated against him, how calculated the psychological manipulation reportedly became, and how devastating the personal attacks grew, you'll understand why sources describe this separation as more than a typical divorce but rather a systematic destruction, a carefully planned demolition, a behind-the-scenes war waged with intimate secrets as weapons. If you want to keep up with this unfolding drama, smash that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up right now. Everything reportedly began with a whisper that cut deeper than any public scandal about royal duties or family conflicts, something that allegedly struck at Harry's most vulnerable insecurities according to sources, a privacy breach so intimate and humiliating that even seasoned royal journalists paused before running the headlines. Radar Online didn't accidentally stumble upon the specific medications Prince Harry allegedly stored in his private bathroom, because that level of personal detail comes from someone with complete access to your daily routine, someone who knows your morning habits and evening rituals, and sources pointed directly at Meghan Markle as the leak. When the world learned about finasteride and minoxidil along with their documented side effects, there was an uncomfortable silence because these weren't simple hair treatments but medications linked to consequences that destroy male confidence. Emotional instability, mood disruptions, and according to insiders, intimate dysfunction that attacks the core of masculine identity. Harry's most private medical struggles reportedly became internet mockery within hours, and this wasn't some accidental information slip because the coverage was gentle, almost sympathetic, with concerned friends and whispered suggestions that Harry was changing, becoming distant, with subtle implications that their romantic connection had faded due to his personal issues. But underneath that compassionate framing was reportedly a calculated attack, because Meghan didn't simply expose his vulnerability according to sources, she allegedly crafted the narrative, shaped the presentation, and delivered it to the media like a perfectly timed explosive device. For Harry, this was reportedly psychological warfare before he understood the battle had even begun. Once the medical information hit the press, a disturbing pattern emerged according to insiders, because this wasn't about hair loss treatments or pharmaceutical side effects but about psychological control, the kind Meghan had allegedly mastered better than anyone in Harry's inner circle. Sources describe someone who had constructed her entire public persona around storytelling, perfect timing, and media manipulation, because every step of her transformation from struggling actress to global duchess had been orchestrated with an almost supernatural understanding of public opinion. When their relationship started fracturing, she reportedly didn't create scenes or demand confrontations but instead began reshaping the story according to sources. She started planting seeds months before Harry recognized the campaign, never directly stating this marriage is over, but instead gently confiding to trusted contacts that something was deeply wrong with him, that he'd become withdrawn, unstable, nothing like the man she'd fallen in love with. These carefully planted fragments reportedly combined to create a picture of a devoted wife suffering because of a husband who'd somehow let her down, and media coverage followed that exact storyline according to insiders. Meghan appeared composed, elegant, misunderstood, while Harry was portrayed as fragile, unstable, and buckling under psychological pressure. The truth became irrelevant because what mattered was who controlled the storytelling, and behind closed doors, Harry wasn't just watching his marriage disintegrate but reportedly losing control over his own life narrative. The same woman who'd once protected his secrets was now allegedly weaponizing them according to sources, and every revelation served as a reminder that intimacy in her hands had become ammunition rather than affection. Months before any public drama erupted, before headlines or privacy violations, their home had already transformed into something unrecognizable according to sources familiar with the couple. What outsiders believed was a romantic escape to California sunshine had reportedly become an emotional battlefield where love went to die. Sources say that following their second child's arrival, everything turned Arctic. Not through explosive arguments or dramatic confrontations, just a creeping coldness that invaded every room like winter fog. The electric chemistry that once made their public appearances magnetic completely vanished behind their mansion gates, while intimate dinners disappeared and spontaneous laughter became extinct. The couple that once couldn't keep their hands off each other now reportedly moved through their shared space like strangers managing a business partnership, connected only through schedules and parental responsibilities, according to insiders. Meghan threw herself into brand-building projects, anything that allowed her to maintain control over her external image, while Harry desperately tried to survive emotionally, hoping against hope that their lost connection might somehow resurrect itself. But that warmth never returned, according to sources, and insiders say Harry felt emotionally abandoned long before any media scandals erupted, while Meghan had allegedly grown completely disinterested. The passionate romance that fueled their whirlwind courtship had evaporated, and rather than fighting to rebuild what they'd lost, she reportedly began orchestrating her departure with the same precision she applied to everything else. Because in Meghan's universe, according to sources, she never gets abandoned, she does the abandoning, and Harry, completely oblivious to the storm brewing around him, kept desperately trying to salvage a relationship that had already started its calculated self-destruction. When future historians analyze this relationship collapse, they'll focus on the public scandals, media leaks, and humiliation campaigns, according to insiders, but the actual destruction didn't happen through one explosive moment, but through a carefully orchestrated timeline, methodical, deliberate, and spanning several years. Phase 1 was their wedding spectacle, a global performance wrapped in sacred music and priceless jewelry where the monarchy held its collective breath. The world became enchanted, and Meghan entered the royal spotlight with the confidence of someone who'd already calculated every camera angle. Behind her radiant bridal smile, sources say she was already strategizing about platforms, business opportunities, and the long-term commercial value of her new Duchess status. Phase 2 became their honeymoon period, glamorous and fast-moving, but with an underlying chill that few people noticed, where Meghan allegedly complained to friends that Harry was emotionally needy, psychologically demanding, and suffocatingly attached, according to sources. Harry believed he'd finally discovered someone who valued the man behind the royal title, but what he failed to understand was that she appreciated the title perfectly well. Phase 3 occurred after their children arrived, when the entire dynamic shifted, according to insiders, because once their second baby was born, their home descended into an uncomfortable silence. Harry fought to maintain their connection, but the emotional warmth had permanently evaporated, while Meghan concentrated on carefully curated public projects and brand-building ventures, leaving Harry feeling emotionally discarded, professionally sidelined, and increasingly confused about his role in her future vision. Phase 4 brought the medical leak campaign, when privacy violations began, starting small and then escalating, with intimate details finding their way into tabloid coverage and each revelation systematically destroying Harry's sense of security. For him, these were reportedly devastating betrayals, but for her, sources claim they were tactical moves in a larger strategy. Phase 5 involved the alleged video collection, according to insiders, not divorce papers or public announcements, just quiet, calculated psychological pressure, where Meghan reportedly displayed footage to selected friends showing Harry unconscious, Harry partying recklessly, Harry at his most vulnerable, with each clip serving as a reminder that she controlled the most damaging evidence. Make sure you smash that subscribe button if you want to see how deep this goes. If the medical privacy breach wounded Harry in public view, the alleged video archive reportedly destroyed him in private, and this becomes the part of the story that insiders discuss in hushed tones because it transforms the narrative from marriage problems into something much more sinister and calculated. According to multiple sources, Meghan didn't limit herself to saving text messages or email conversations, but allegedly maintained a collection of video footage captured during their most private moments, some appearing innocent while others were deeply compromising. Harry unconscious after nights he'd prefer to forget, Harry stumbling through social events, Harry potentially using substances during periods when the public assumed he was recovering, even intimate recordings that were never intended for anyone beyond their bedroom. The most disturbing allegation, according to sources, is that she displayed some of these recordings to friends, not seeking emotional support or relationship advice, but demonstrating her power. This wasn't screaming or making threats, but a quiet demonstration of control, the type of psychological move that reminds someone exactly how much of their dignity rests in your hands, according to insiders. A private collection of a prince's most humiliating moments stored on the phone of a woman planning her strategic exit, and for Harry, this wasn't just emotional leverage but reportedly a ticking time bomb. Sources say he started living in constant fear of what might surface next because every disagreement, every moment of distance in their home, every cold interaction came with the knowledge that another clip could hit the internet at any moment. The most terrifying aspect, according to insiders, was Harry's complete ignorance about the size of this collection, or what other footage might be waiting to detonate his remaining dignity. Hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up if you want to see more explosive truth. Only after everything else collapsed, the privacy violations, the alleged video archive, the public humiliation, does the most nuclear allegation emerge, and it appears late in the story for specific reasons, according to sources. This was reportedly a whisper that surfaced during the final stages, carefully and cautiously, the type of rumor that insiders handle like unstable explosives. Sources allege that Meghan never physically carried either pregnancy herself, and according to one claimed medical insider, surrogate arrangements were confirmed through professional channels. While specific details remain limited, the implications alone were reportedly earth-shattering because in British royal tradition, bloodline isn't celebrity gossip but constitutional law, national identity, and historical legitimacy. If accurate and even rumored as possible, this would allegedly represent a constitutional-level crisis with questions the monarchy never wanted confronted and concerns about tradition, authenticity, and the honesty of someone who'd built her public image on vulnerability and transparency. For Meghan, this was reportedly another storyline she could control through privacy narratives, health concerns, trauma protection, and personal choice. But for Harry, sources say it left him psychologically shattered. A man who'd promised to give his children the stable childhood he'd been denied was now allegedly questioning whether fundamental aspects of his own family's story had been concealed from him. This was the final allegation in a series of devastating revelations, according to insiders, one that didn't merely threaten their marriage but reportedly undermined the basic foundation of Harry's understanding of reality. This is where everything comes together, according to sources, because fundamentally this wasn't reportedly about a betrayed prince or an escaping duchess, but about two people living completely different versions of the truth, until the gap between them became an unbridgeable chasm. Picture Harry now, according to insiders, a man who'd abandoned his royal inheritance for love, believing he'd finally achieved authentic freedom. Someone who'd traded palaces for California beaches, hereditary titles for personal peace, and ancient protocol for genuine passion, yet he allegedly stands here stripped of everything he thought he'd protected: his privacy, his dignity, his marriage, his sense of identity. Every confidence he'd shared reportedly became headline material, every weakness became a weapon, and every intimate moment became a rumor waiting for public consumption, according to sources. Meanwhile, Meghan remains composed, polished, and moving forward with her alleged evidence collection, her carefully preserved documentation, and her methodically crafted personal reinvention, each element reportedly serving as a trophy from a story she controlled from beginning to end. Because in this version of events, according to insiders, she never fought to preserve their relationship, but fought to achieve total victory. And when she spoke those wedding vows, sources say she wasn't promising eternal commitment, but guaranteeing her own triumph. What we've laid out so far isn't just the story of a collapsing relationship, it's the blueprint of something deeper. A pattern of behavior, strategy, and emotional manipulation that, according to insiders, unfolded behind closed doors long before the public noticed anything was wrong. Because this wasn't simply a failed marriage, it was reportedly the slow disintegration of one person's reality while the other quietly rewrote the script. Harry, sources say, believed he was building a shared life rooted in love, trust, and emotional healing. But in the version shared by those close to the situation, Meghan had already shifted her focus, not toward rebuilding the relationship, but toward reframing it. The love story became a brand, the connection became content. And behind the scenes, what looked like distance was, insiders claim, part of a larger strategy. As Meghan prepared her next chapter, reportedly filled with production deals, media control, and rebranding, Harry was left trying to keep the emotional foundation intact. But the warmth had vanished. Not through arguments, but through absence, through gradual coldness, through the silent breakdown of every ritual, every sign of closeness, every shared laugh that once defined their dynamic. And what makes this more than a breakup story is the way it happened. There was no public fallout, no headline-making explosion, just a man reportedly trying to keep love alive while the story around him was already being re-authored without his input. Insiders say the worst part isn't the betrayal, it's the possibility that he was never part of the long-term plan. That his vulnerability, his emotional openness, and his desire for authenticity were used, not cherished. Because once the emotional connection died, what remained was not a partnership but a performance. And Harry's sources claim was the last one to realize he was no longer on the same stage. This is the aftermath. A man who gave up a kingdom for love, now left questioning whether that love ever existed in the way he believed. And in that space between what he thought was real and what might have been calculated, comes a silence that says more than any statement ever could. What this really reveals goes far beyond celebrity scandal. It's about the terrifying reality of what happens when intimacy becomes leverage. Because when someone knows your insecurities, your weaknesses, your private pain, they hold more than just emotional power. They hold the ability to shape how the world sees you. And according to sources, that's exactly what Meghan allegedly did. Insiders claim Harry's openness, his emotional confessions, his vulnerable moments weren't met with equal trust, but quietly archived. Not to heal the relationship, but to control its legacy. And as the public began to see a softer, more curated version of Meghan post-separation, Harry's image was reportedly left to unravel. Media whispers emerged. He was fragile, withdrawn, mentally unstable, all without direct accusations, just a subtle shift in tone, timing, and public narrative. And according to those familiar with the inner circle, that wasn't coincidence. It was calculated, not with aggression, not with shouting or scandal, but with silence. Because when you're the one holding the narrative, you don't need to defend yourself, you just need to wait until the other person falls apart under the weight of not being heard. Harry's sources say began to question everything, not just what was shared, but what was saved. Messages, recordings, personal footage, not weaponized overtly, but kept stored, ready. And in a world built on image, that kind of power changes everything. Because this wasn't just the collapse of a marriage, it was the erasure of one person's control over their own story. And yet, even now, he remains silent. Not because he's weak, but because when every word you speak might be twisted or leaked, silence feels like the only form of safety left. But here's the shift. The cracks in the polished image are starting to show. People are questioning the perfection, and if Harry ever does speak openly, fearlessly, with receipts, the balance could change overnight. Because the only thing stronger than a curated narrative is the truth it tried to bury. Thanks for watching this full breakdown. If this gave you a new perspective, hit like, subscribe, and share with someone who still believes in the surface version of this story. And remember, the people closest to you can either protect your truth or reshape it into something you don't even recognize.